All right, I'm going to do a video here to help you guys if you are working on the Alex assignment for finding area of different figures and then some composite figures. First up, I've got right here just finding the area of a parallelogram, and it's not a lot different than finding the area of a rectangle. The only thing to be aware of is the formula says area equals base times height. And now sometimes, if you, like for example in this picture, they show me 3 different numbers here. So we've actually got one more number than what we need. And it's important that you know which number is the base and which is the height. Okay, so the base, first of all, let's talk about the height. The height is that number on the inside that you see, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the inside, but it does have to be the number that meets the base at a 90-degree angle. Okay, so you'll see right here is the 90-degree angle. And when you find that, you can find the 2 numbers that you need. Okay, that 90-degree angle means that dotted line is my height. So I'm going to put the 15 in for the height. And the base is the side that the 90-degree angle touches. So in this case, it's going to be 13. So for this parallelogram, the area is going to be the base is 13 times the height of 15, and that gives me 195. And make sure we label it correctly. Our units are yards, and because we're finding area, it's yards squared. I guess here they just say yard, square yard. So that's for a parallelogram. Not much different than a rectangle. Just make sure you find the height and base, because sometimes they give you that extra number. The next one, finding the area of the triangle. And again, sometimes here they give you more information than you really need, just to see if you're paying attention, if you know what's going on. So, area equals 1/2. And just like in that parallelogram, the height is the same sort of thing. You got to find that measurement in your triangle that meets one of the sides at a 90-degree. And when you find that 90-degree angle, right here, you can find your base and your height pretty easily. So I found the 90-degree angle. That means that dotted line is the height. Okay, so I know that my height is 6, and the base, again, is the side that the 90-degree angle touches, which is that side right there, 18. Now we can use a calculator. We might not need to for this. Half of 18, I think we all know what half of 18 is. Half of 18 is 9. And then 9 times 6 gives us 54. Now, if you are using a calculator, we got to figure out our units here. Again, this is the same. Yards squared, or square yard, they say on Alex. If you're using a calculator, make sure when you get to 1/2 that you remember 1/2 is the same as what decimal? 0.5. Or if you're going to enter it into a calculator using 1/2, maybe make sure you use the parenthesis and say 1 divided by 2, because that's the same as 1/2. and then say times your base of 18 times your height of 6. Okay, because remember what we've always said about calculators, they're only as smart as the person using them. So make sure you're careful with it and get the right things put in there. The next one we're going to talk about is the area of a trapezoid. This formula looks a little more complicated, but it's not really that bad. There's 3 things I need to find. They say B1 and B2, which are the 2 bases. And those are the sides that are parallel to each other. So when I look at my trapezoid, I have this base right here that says 7 and another base that says 18. Okay, so those are the sides that we need to look at. They're also, instead of saying the sides that are parallel, we can also say that the 2 bases are the sides that are connected by the height. So again, if you can find that height, which you find by looking for that 90-degree angle again, the bases are the 2 sides that the height is connecting. All right, so again, I'm looking at, let me zoom into this a little bit. If I'm looking at the height, we just said that's right here, that's the height. And then the bases are those 2 sides connected to the height. Okay, so really this 8 up here on the top, we don't really need that 8. That was extra. It's just there. It confuses some people. So again, we're making sure we get the right numbers that we want. So area equals 1/2 B1 plus B2. It doesn't matter when you add numbers. The order doesn't matter. The commutative property of addition, we've talked about that. B1, I'll just say, could be 7 plus B2 could be 18. Got those. Those have to be there. And then the height is, whoops, I don't know why I wrote H. The height is the 4 feet there in the middle that is circled. Now we can do this a couple of ways. I can say, I'm going to slide this up a little bit here. We can say area equals 1/2 times 7 plus 18 is 25, I'm pretty sure, times 4. And I know that half of 4 is 2, and I've still got times the 25. So I know that the area should equal 50. My units are feet, and I'm finding area should be squared. Now again, if you're using a calculator, make sure you understand what to do with the 1/2. Using 0.5 is the easiest thing to do. Just enter it in there carefully. The next one we're going to look at, so we've talked about the trapezoid, we've talked about a triangle, we've talked about a parallelogram, and now we're going to look at a couple of composite figures. And when I say composite figures, it just means more than one shape all put together. So for example, I have, and this can be done different ways, but I'm just going to divide this right here and say, boom, here's rectangle number 1. There's rectangle number 2. And up on the top, I'm going to say is my 3rd rectangle. So I've really got 3 shapes here that I'm going to find the area of, and then I'm going to add them together, and that's the area of the entire composite figure, they call it. So for this first rectangle I talked about, well, the area for a rectangle is base times height. So if I look at rectangle number 1, I see that it's 2 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So that's pretty simple. Area for rectangle number 1 is just 2 times 4, which is 8. Now, if I look at rectangle number 2, same thing. One side is 2, one side is 4, so it's the same. That one is 8. Now, the area of the third rectangle, we need to make sure we think about a little bit. I know that the whole side is 7. Okay? That whole side is 7. And I've got to figure out this little part right here. Well, I know the whole side is 6. All the way up and down there is 6. And I know right here that number that I used was 4. So that must mean that there is 2 centimeters left right there. Okay, so the measurements I need for this third rectangle are 2 centimeters by 7 centimeters. 2 by 7 gives me 14. Now I can add those 3 things together. 14 and 8 gives me 30. So area equals 30. And they've already got the units in there for you. Centimeters squared. So when you see those composite figures, you've just got to look at them and go ahead and sketch it out on a piece of paper. Put your measurements in there, and you just got to do a little figuring for yourself, and you can get them done. They're not that difficult. They can be done different ways. I could have said, well, I'm going to make rectangle 2 this one, all right, all the way up to the top. And I'm going to make this triangle, I keep saying triangle, this rectangle number 1, all the way up to the top. And now my third one would just be this little one. So there's more than one way to do these. So if you're trying to do it, someone's trying to tell you you're doing it wrong, or they're doing it differently, that's okay, because there's more than one way to do them, just like a lot of things that we talk about in math. This one last composite figure here, it's a little different than the last one. They want me to find the area of the shaded region. When I look at this figure, I see 2 shapes. I see a rectangle. Okay, I see this big rectangle right there. And then I see this other little triangle down here in the bottom right. Okay, so if we think about this, I can find the area of that big rectangle. So the area for that big rectangle, if I look at the top, it says it's 6 centimeters. Meters. And it's 7 meters tall. 7 meters tall. And again, that's an easy one. Area equals 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. Meters squared. So we've got that, the area of the big rectangle. Now we've got to look at that triangle, and we might have to do a little bit of thinking there. Maybe some of you are saying, oh, it's not too hard, I got it. So if I look at the triangle, I've got to do a little bit of thinking. I know that what was up here on the top was 6. And they've shown me right here is 2. So what does that leave me for the rest of that base of that triangle? Well, if I know this whole thing here has to add up to 6, then that's got to be a 4. So I know this is a 4. And then using the same kind of logic for this side right here, I knew that the other side was 7 altogether. And I've got 4 here for this top portion. So what does that leave me there? Well, that leaves me 3. Okay. And then if we remember to find the area of a triangle, it's 1/2 base times height. So 1/2 times 4 for my base times my height of 3. Half of 4, I think we all know that, 2. And then 2 times 3 gives me 6 units are meters squared. So now I think we can answer the question. Find the area of the shaded region. Be sure to use the correct units. We found that the whole rectangle, let me make a different color here and a bigger line so we can, this whole rectangle we found was 42. And this portion down in the bottom corner here was 6. So if I take 42 and subtract 6, that should leave me with the answer. And I'm thinking that's going to be 36. Double check, 42 minus 6, 36. So the final answer I should say for this is 36 meters squared. So that was a little bit. 36 meters squared. All right, I hope that helps you with some of the problems on the Alex assignment. If you can get those done by this Sunday, that'd be great. And I hope you're having a good time. Enjoy the weather when it's nice out. And don't get too stressed out with doing these things. Do whatever you can do. If you need help, ask. I'll make more videos and do whatever I can to help. So have a good